Good afternoon. This is Lindsay. It's uh November 12th, 2023. It is Sunday, and sorry, I'm trying to get myself adjusted on this chair thing. Um, I thought I'd do a video today about I think I want to talk about narcissist again, about one of my favorite topics of all, talking about narcissistic abuse and what these people will do to try to entrap you or, like punish you, shame you, smear you, and things like that, okay? And because I have a lot of experience with these kinds of people, that's why I can talk about it. And no, I'm not an expert on narcissism. I'm certainly not a licensed psychologist or whatever. I'm pretty much, I feel like I can be a counselor or a coach in a lot of ways, but I'm not like a PhD or master's degree, obviously. But still, I have enough experience of my own in my own life to be able to talk about these things. And I've talked about before how I think that like the whole targeted individual program ties in a lot with narcissistic abuse, societal narcissism. The two are intertwined, and I can get more into that. But I guess let me talk a little bit more about the whole targeted individual program, because as you know, or most of you know, that what that means is if you're being targeted, it means that you are on some kind of a watch list. It means that you angered somebody in the community at some point, or you're a dissident, a political dissident. You got fired from a job because you're controversial, or just there can be so many different reasons as to why you may become a targeted person. And a lot of the times, like in my case, and I've talked about this before, it's because I have I can kind of point to it. It's in the background on my altar shrine, if you want to call it. I have right there my original birth certificate. That's part of my decor, because it's like a never-ending saga for me to try to find out the truth about why I have this fraudulent birth record, right? You can see it. It's a green document that I'm pointing to right there on the mirror. You can't see it from here, but it's like a light green color, just like it looks exactly like the same format as that Barack Obama's birth certificate, the one that was supposedly from Hawaii or whatever, that was so controversial. That's exactly what mine looks like. The same format, the same everything, except it's got like a little Texas stamp at the bottom of it with a star, a pentacle, 5-pointed star and a pentacle. Literally, there's a stamp, like a embossed stamp of a pentacle, a 5-pointed star pentacle, not the satanic pentacle, because there's a difference between a pentagram and a pentacle. A pentacle has a circle around it. Let me show you so you get, because a lot of people get this mixed up. What this is about, and it can cause a lot of confusion. Okay, this is a pagan pentacle. That's like pagan sign, pagan. Okay, which is what I have, or what I feel that I can relate to, mostly due to my background, my DNA, my family heritage, and all that. This is what my roots are: European ancestry, pagan. And so that's what that is. That's a pentacle. That's a pentagram, and that's not a satanic. This is not a satanic symbol, even though it all can kind of relate to sorcery and pharmakia and magic and rituals and all that kind of stuff. They're not the same thing. And no, I'm not somebody who goes out into the woods and does sacrifices on animals or people by any means, which would be really ridiculous considering, number one, I hate blood. Number two, I'm a vegetarian, mostly vegan. For the most part, vegetarian. I mean, vegan. I seldom eat any animal products at all. Very rarely. So I'm a vegan, and I can't stand needles. I hate, there's nothing I hate more than needles. I hate the sight of blood, and I can't stand meat, or the smell of it, or everything about meat and flesh of an animal I find repulsive, and that goes for fish as well. I can't stand anything. Fish, eggs, anything like that. The animal protein. I get repulsed physically. I get sick from the smell of it, being around it. Everything about it makes me physically feel sick. And the times that I have, I know I've jumped off topic. I'm like started out talking about one thing and now I'm sorry about that. But so even as a child, going back to when I was a little girl, they would try, and I mean my mom and my grandparents and whatnot, when I'd go visit them, they would try, and my father, the man I grew up thinking was my father, that is to say, who I used to go visit every other weekend. He's not even my biological father. But anyway, I guess I would make it, he's my, I don't want to talk about that right now, but I've already talked about that whole weird situation. But anyway, they would try to get me to eat meat and this, that, and the other, and I would taste it a little bit, and I would just spit it out, because I hated it even back then as a kid. I hated chicken, I hated fish, I couldn't stand anything beef, or especially if there was visible blood or steak. I couldn't do it. And they all ate it. Everybody in my family, whatever, I came from a broken home, if you want to call it. I don't know what else to call it, divorced, all that kind of shit, going, I don't want to talk, but nonetheless, they ate, everybody that I know of, my cousins, my aunt, my uncle, my father, actually, I still call my uncle, no, my father, he's really my father. But anyway, they all ate meat, but not heavy meat eaters, but so anyway, I'm the only person in that whole family, and I'm the only one who's a vegetarian. I got teased and picked on a lot about that growing up, because I've been this way my entire life. So it was always a source of my being kind of bullied around and mocked and insulted, especially during certain holidays like Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter, whatever, back when I was a child, when everybody would be eating maybe turkey or some kind of animal product, and I would be the only one not eating it, and I got teased a lot for that. But anyway, so yeah, like accordingly, what they say about witches, and I'm not really a witch, but I have some abilities, I think, that are kind of like psychic type abilities, that I can do things and think of things that happen. So it's not necessarily like I get out a little book and start doing spells. I've never done anything like that, but I light candles, I burn incense, and I meditate. And I have photographs of deceased on my altar. Those are all, it's a dedication. This whole thing that I have right there is like it's just basically a whole, it's just an altar to in memory of deceased relatives of mine, because they pretty much have all died. Most of my family, mostly everybody. So that's what that is. And I collect little crystals, and I like charms, and I like, stones and things like this, and amulets. But nonetheless, this is a pentacle. It's a pentacle. Now this, on the other hand, because I get into symbolism, I like jewelry and charms and things. This, as you can see the difference between these two, if you look closely, the one right here is the pentacle, which is pagan, represents European paganism. Okay, this one in my right hand, this little one right here, is what you call a pentagram. A pentagram. This is a pentagram, which is something that they use in satanic symbolism. That's a pentagram. But it also is a star of Saturn. It's not just a pentagram. You need to understand that the reasons that a pentagram is not, it also represents the dark arts and the occult, which I love very much. And I'm a Capricorn, which means I'm ruled by the planet Saturn. So this also is called the Star of Saturn, and it's a pentagram. So it's not just a satanic symbol. It does, So just because I research things like that and have a fascination with that kind of things, I find it interesting, doesn't mean that that's what I am. Okay, I don't go out doing sacrifices or drinking adrenochrome from dead children, nor am I part of any elite group, and I'm not anything. I'm not a Freemason, which is I'm not anything. I'm just a person who is basically agnostic, maybe and kind of pagan, a little bit of both. I don't know, but spiritual. So anyway, talking about that, but so I believe that. But what's weird, like I said, is like my birth certificate literally has this symbol on it, embedded, embossed. The fake birth certificate basically has this at the bottom of it, but it's like a stamped thing, like an embossed. And I could get it. I'd have to untape it from the wall, but basically it's engraved right there on the birth certificate. But that document is fraudulent. It's fraudulent. It's clearly, and I guess I'll go ahead and get it because this is what this is about today. Here I go. It's falling apart. The whole thing is basically falling apart because I've had it so long. It's all falling apart. But this is down here. There is a, I guess it's right here. You can barely see it. Right here where my finger is. You see that star right there? That thing right here? You can barely see it. It's right there. It's right there. And it's like a star, but it looks exactly like the, it's a pentacle. It's a pentacle because it's surrounded by a circle, and it's a pentacle. But it's pointed, but if it were pointed, if it were a pentagram, it wouldn't have a circle around it, and because as you can see, this is a pentagram, and there's not a complete circle around it, and look at the way the star is shaped. If it were, now, as opposed to this one, it goes up. You see, it points up. So that's a pentacle versus a pentagram. Difference here. There's a difference. You see? Well, anyway, there's a difference. Don't get the two confused, because a lot of people are a little bit, shall I say, oblivious or ignorant about what it's all about, and they automatically confine you to some little a Satanist, and this person is evil, and they do spells, and they cast evil spells and witchcraft and all this. Oh, you need to get, you need to, quit categorizing people so much when you don't really even know what you're talking about, is my advice to those of you who don't really know what you're talking about, because you just think and you automatically stereotype people for certain things, because it happens to me all the time, and it's happened to me throughout my life. But anyway, so I've got this fake birth certificate that's that green color that looks like Obama, the whatever Barack Obama, same fucking format, and like I need to tape it together, but it's fake. It's a fake document. It's clearly it's fraudulent. So I don't know the mystery behind why I have that and where I was really born and who, all I know on there is it says that Kenny Griffith Baldwin was my mother. And another thing you can tell it's fake, it was issued in September of 1980. I was supposedly born January 5th, 1975. Why would it be issued 5 years after my birth? Well, and it begs the question: was I born in a automobile? Was I born in Mexico? What exactly is this about? And nobody's telling me anything. It's like I do know that I was born from an adulterous affair, and I do know that the man growing up, who was my uncle, is really my father. I know that. I found that much out. But other than why why I have a fake birth certificate and all that, I don't know. I don't know what the story behind that is, except that obviously, when you think about it, if you came from an adulterous affair, then probably, there's going to be some problems when it comes to the birth certificate, right? And what goes on at the hospital and all that. Because supposedly, I remember asking my mother, was Dad at the hospital when I was born? I asked her, I was like, my alleged father, Ben Baldwin, the man who was my father growing up. I said, was he at the hospital? She's like, no, he wasn't. He got there later. She makes up all this stuff. She fabricates things to try to hide her own shame and guilt and lies, what typical narcissistic people do. And my mother, I can't say that she's a full-blown evil narcissistic person, because she has a lot of really good qualities, and I believe she's also been a victim of so much stuff throughout her life by evil people taking advantage of her. So I know that she was, has a lot of vulnerabilities, but I also know she can be a real, what. And we have a very tumultuous relationship. But, because I can't stand there's nothing I hate more than being lied to, especially about who I am and who my parents are, and that kind of stuff makes me insane. And especially if I'm a Capricorn, which I'm a Capricorn according to that document and according to what I know, throughout my life. That's what I've, January Capricorn, 1975. Well, it's like Capricorns don't take shit. Capricorns don't like bullshit. They don't like being placated. They're straight shooters, and they like being direct. And so, that's also caused problems for me, because I know that there's certain individuals who their personality is so, like, I guess, flighty would be a word, or so, nonchalant, kind of like I don't give a fuck kind of attitude, or just a little too laid back and they don't take anything, they take things seriously, but they don't have much discipline or regimen. That kind of stuff gets on my nerves, and I can't deal with that kind of thing. I can't deal with people who are lackadaisical. No, they wake up at noon. They don't, they're too spontaneous. Like, I have to have a routine. I have to have a routine in order to stay sane. I have to maintain some kind of a routine, and for me, it means waking up pretty early every morning. Really early for the most part, and sticking with a routine, because that's what helps me with chronic anxiety, depression, PTSD, all these things that I have. anger issues, sometimes insecurities, jealousy. I have a lot of these issues, abandonment, all kinds of things, and I admit it. I admit I've got a lot of things that I try to work on myself all the time and understand that I have weaknesses that I have to try to, nobody's perfect, but damn it, I try and I do the best I can and I have confidence, but I know that like I've got a lot of flaws and things that I have to be careful about as well. Because when you go around thinking that, oh, everybody's out to get me and everybody hates me, and the more you think these things, then it will manifest in your life. You do bring that into your life the more you think about it and whatnot. That's just the way it is. It's like kind of like you are the master of your own plan in a way. Now, there's a higher power in charge, I believe, for sure, in my life. I definitely know, I believe in that. But I don't think that, I do believe that I have a certain amount of control, for sure. Because you do have more authority and control than you think you do. Some people don't, and you only learn these things about yourself through experience. I think the more experiences you have in life, whether they're good or bad, traumatic, things like that, injuries, some, serious injury, deaths in the family, parental abandonment or a loss of a parent, things like this, shocking things that you find out about your past or about your family. These are or bad relationships, bad marriages, or things that go sour. These are the kinds of things that actually will have a profound impact on your interesting. They will. Oh, I don't know what I'm doing. They'll have an impact on you. They do have an impact on your the way you develop, the way you perceive things, and things like that, because it's about experience. And what I believe is that these kinds of things that happen, they do happen for a reason to an extent, but it's also about your own experiences. Really weird. And I tend to like be able to predict certain things or kind of like about certain people after I kind of get to know them and spend some time with them. I can usually sort of I can I can kind of predict what the outcome of that relationship's going to be, Now, in my case, and this is what a lot of people have done, is there's certain people who that you met them for a reason, right? They came into your life for a reason. They're out of your life for a reason, and you know these things subconsciously. You know that kind of stuff happens, and there's little, you might get little signs, like maybe red flags about warning about somebody. Obviously, your intuition will tell you things, but usually, what I have found, because I always put it to the test, because I like to do that and try to see the outcome myself, but I can usually already know certain things. You really have to, what you really need to learn, or I have learned with experience and with time as I get older, to really go with my instincts and to trust my instincts more than I had in the past. Because it's not to say that I'm not spontaneous, because I am. I do things spontaneously from time to time, but when you do everything like spontaneously and you don't think about things at all and you don't think about what the outcomes may be, that those are the kinds of things that can get you into a lot of danger situations. And because sometimes when you get really overwhelmed and there's a lot going on at once, and you're traumatized, you're in shock, you're overwhelmed, you might obviously make decisions that are not beneficial. But you still know things, and you still have to believe in your own intuition and your gut feelings about certain outcomes and people and places and things. The best advice is to go with what you know and what you think, because you are the one who knows. People can't tell you who you are or what to think or what these things. Nobody's going to tell you, or nobody has the authority to tell you you have to do this or you have to behave that way. Who are they to do that unless you're a child and it's a parent? But other than that, as an adult, I know how to make my own decisions. I might not make the best decisions from time to time, but I sure as hell don't need a fucking guardianship or anything like that. I can make my own fucking decisions, and I can, pay my bills and whatnot. But people seem to think that I'm like, they try to induce this schizophrenia. It's like induced schizophrenia that they use with the fucking media, for example. Like at the gym, it's all this induced fucking paranoia and propaganda that they're monitoring me such that it's like behavior modification, where they want to see how they want to see how you react to these weird little things that they do. And it's kind of stupid, because it's like I've been experiencing this kind of crap for so many years now, being a targeted individual and whatnot, because of my beliefs, because I'm a dissident, because I don't believe in the fucking official narrative of 9/11. Things like that. It's gotten me into trouble. It's gotten me hated by a lot of people. And I know that. I'm aware of that. But I still have the right to think what I want to think. I still have the right to be my own person and not feel like I have to be influenced by propaganda or things that I don't necessarily feel in accordance with. And if I don't feel like I like that, or if I don't feel comfortable about it, then I'm not going to go along with it and play the game. I can't. It's not... What the fuck? Sorry, I'm talking... It's not who I am. It's not my personality. I'm a very outspoken, direct person who is opinionated. And these qualities... And I do a lot of research about things, and I use a trivium process. I like to compare and contrast my information so I can, get a view from this perspective and that perspective. Maybe it's a real mainstream perspective, and then I compare that with more alternative views about the same thing. That's kind of like using the trivium process when you do research. Because I spend hours and hours and hours researching certain things that I get really involved with, and that's what I've been doing for so long now. That it's a passion. It's a passion of mine. Getting on the computer, researching things, and listening to podcasts and whatnot, reading books. That's a passion of mine. It's something I really enjoy doing. In addition to other things, but so. I have a lot of different, I'm all over the place, and you can't let society try to conform you into a little box of what you need to be or what they think you should be so that you fit in and conform. Because if you do that and you spend a lot of time worrying about what everybody else thinks about you and this, that, and the other, which I used to do, and I still am guilty of doing that from time to time, but it's going to make you insane. if you worry so much about whatever other people are thinking and what they might be thinking about you, you're just making yourself go crazy, because in reality, these people are so involved with their own problems or their own situation, whatever it might be, that they don't give a shit. The reality is they don't care. They don't care. They don't even know. Most people don't give a shit. And realistically speaking, total strangers, unless they're stalkers or obsessed with you, don't fucking give a shit about you. They just don't. Why would they? They've got a family. They've got their own lives. Just like me, I'm not going to preoccupy myself with every fucking thing that goes on around me. I might get triggered, and it might give me an emotional reaction, but I can't take on all that. It's too much for one person, and to act like I'm here to save the fucking world, and here I am, and let me see what I can do, and I'm here to help. No, I used to have the mentality that I could help everybody, and that everybody was a good person, and that, I used to be real fucking hippie-minded, like, yeah, maybe I smoked too much pot back then. I don't fucking know, but now it's a lot different, because I've been through a lot more, and I see the reality of what life is about. It's not, you have to take the fucking rose-colored glasses off, or take the fucking red pill, or, it's not all blue pill. It's not all happy and, go along to get along, and, no, that's not realistic. That's not realistic, because everybody is different. People are of different cultures. People have different dogma, different standards and morals, and different educational backgrounds and whatnot. And so it's impossible. It's actually quite stupid for people to think that everybody can just get along and we can all love each other and accept each other for who we are and act like, one big happy family hippie shit. That's stupid, unless everybody's doped up on marijuana or mushrooms all the time, maybe, because you're so high and you have that mentality that love everybody and peace and shit like that. Yeah, that's real, come on, unrealistic. And we all know that. And most of the problems that we have today stem from, well, you think about it. Do I need to say the word? Political problems, political Zionism. And that's a fact. The majority of the all the drug trade, all the shit, all the propaganda, all the pornography, all that stuff, it comes from a certain ethnicity of people called the Jewish people, who introduced that to most countries and got expelled from a lot of these places, but it's very rampant everywhere here in this country, especially because of the media and the propaganda that they control. And so, and I'll quote this. I'm not going to quote it directly because I don't know, I can't remember exactly what he said, but Eustace Mullins, who wrote the book Secrets of the Federal Reserve, for example, this man, he's, look him up. This man said something along the lines of that this country, the United States, is the new Israel. This is the new Israel, okay? That's what he said. Something in one of his lectures that I listened to. He didn't say it exactly like that, but what he is saying and what makes sense is that this country, because the military, who does the military serve? It doesn't serve the American people. It serves the Israeli interests, the Mossad, okay? Nothing to do with this country. It's not about that. It's about those people. You're fighting a war for the Jew, it's all for the Jewish people, okay? It is. That's what it's about. It's not about the Americans. There's not a threat to terrorism in the United States. Just like if you still fucking believe that 9/11 was done by terrorists and that it wasn't some kind of Israeli Mossad government psyop controlled demolition operation, then I'm sorry, but you're kind of not all there. You need to wake up, because I've known this stuff for years, okay? It's pretty obvious that what that's about. That's just one false flag example, or psyop, whatever the fuck you want to call it, psychological warfare. And as a result of 9/11, what we have, the Patriot Act and all this shit, where there's surveillance and whatnot, all of which never was in existence until 9/11. Which, why did we have 9/11? An excuse to be able to do all that, to put all that stuff into effect or into action, amongst many other reasons why that happened. But people in this country get so offended if you challenge the official narrative of 9/11, which, come on, hello, if you still believe in the official narrative of 9/11, wow, I'm sorry, but you really, and do you know anything about political Zionism? Do you know anything? I kind of wonder. I mean, because I get on some fucking terrorist watch list starting many, many years ago. Number one, because I was going to a lot of 9/11 truth meetings in Houston and protests and whatnot. And, but it's like, well, how could somebody not fucking know that was a controlled operation? How could you not know that? And you live in the United States. Everybody all over everywhere else knows it was a fucking psyop. Yeah, so I don't mean to. Well, anyway, I just have some weird shit. Well, let me talk about one. Speaking of what target individual crap, this is an example of what a typical targeted individual, myself, might go through on a typical day. A few days ago. Today is Sunday. On Thursday of last week, was it Thursday? Friday of last week, I called a person who cuts my yard. And he's been the same person. Sometimes he brings his wife or his daughter or his son. They have been cutting my grass ever since I lived on Canton Street, a few miles away here in the east side of San Antonio. Okay, same person. So for 8 years now, 7, 8 years, he's been the same person who's been cutting my grass. Even when I moved, with a few exceptions, I used a few other people from time to time, because sometimes he wasn't whatever. But I'm just saying that I've this person I've known for a long time, and he's somebody who I feel I can trust for the most part, and who I don't feel threatened by. Okay, he's not a bad person, and he seems like a good person, right? So I had called him about 2 months ago to try to see, and I couldn't get through to him. He didn't answer his phone or something. The number wasn't going through, and I was like, okay, whatever. So I was like, okay, I'll just wait, because before that, this man on a bicycle kept coming around, and one day he saw me out there cutting the yard with my little push mower, and he said, he spoke Spanish. He said something like, ¿Quieres que corte la yarda? And I said, ¿Cuánto cobra? And he said something like $20 or something, or $30. I was like, okay. So the next day, he shows up on his bicycle or something, and he cuts the yard, right, with his whatever he had, And I remember he was sitting out in the backyard at the table in the back that I have, and it was kind of weird because his name was Moses, whatever, spelled Moiss, and he's from Moises. It's Spanish, Mexican, and he's like a little Mexican, a little Michoacan Mexican guy. He's from Michoacan, Mexico. He's a kind of short little guy, swarthy, indigenous Mexican guy who doesn't speak English. He rides around on a bicycle, okay? And I don't know his story. I don't know. He did tell me at one point that his wife died from some kind of cancer or something, that he lives with his mother, and he asked me if he could live in the barn shed thing that I have in the backyard. I was like, I don't think so. There's no running water. There's no electricity. And he's like, I don't care. I was like, no, you can't live in there. I'm sorry, but no. But anyway, so what happened? So I have not seen that man for months. My yard, the grass is mostly dried out and kind of dead anyway, but now with the weather changing, the grass is getting greener and thicker, more dense, and so I needed to get the yard cut. And my little thing that I have was not cutting it. I mean, it wasn't doing a very good job, and I don't have an actual lawnmower. So I called Jay again, and this time I was able to get through to him. Or I called him, and then he didn't answer, but then he called me back, and he texted me or said something like, "You called?" I said, "Yes." I said, "I'm wondering if you would be able to cut my yard sometime this week or whenever you're available in the afternoon." He said, "Tomorrow." He said, "Yes, tomorrow." And I said, "Okay, cool. What time?" He said, 2 p.m. So I was like, good. And that was yesterday. He cut my yard. Yesterday was Saturday. So he was here Saturday. It was drizzling outside. He got here actually before he was able to get here before 2 o'clock. And he was here, I guess, with his daughter, and they cut my yard. But guess what? Guess what? This is an example of my being targeted. Right when I pulled up here, and I had gone to the gym, the other location I go to, I pull up in my driveway, and there's a guy on a bicycle over next door, circling around, kind of looking at me, and I'm like, what the fuck? Because these neighbors are always fucking watching me. I'm sorry, but there's always somebody out there when I get home, when I leave, just watching me, acting like they're doing something in their car or whatever, but they're fucking keeping tabs on me, and I know that for a fact. They seem to have some kind of fascination with every little thing I do for whatever reason, or it's weird, but it's, so nonetheless, I've been dealing with that for the past, ever since I've lived here, and I don't want to get all into that, but, so they watch me and monitor me, and sometimes I'll have a word or two with some of these people there, and whatever, but that's as far as it goes. I don't really, I don't really know them that well. But anyway, he was riding his bike around their yard, and he sees, and there's this woman out there with this redheaded woman in the driveway standing there looking around, and then she looks at me with this startled look, this woman. I'm like, okay. And then he comes up to me. I'm getting out of my car, and he's like right behind me in my car on his bicycle. I'm like, what the fuck? Who the fuck is that? Because I didn't recognize him. Because he looked, I didn't recognize him. I wasn't sure who it was. And then I got a closer look, and I was like, oh my God, this is Moses, whatever, the guy who's cut my yard before. He said, corto la yarda? Which, in other words, can I cut the yard? I said, no. I said, no, it's okay. I have someone else, thank you. Not necessary. But see, he shows up after 6-7 months or something of not seeing this guy at all. I want to say 6 months. All of a sudden he shows up out of the blue on the same day that Jay, my regular actual yard man, who's been cutting my yard for a long time, is scheduled to come cut my grass. Now tell me that's not bizarre, or that's not indicative of my being under some kind of watch or surveillance, you see? That's an example. That's just one example of weird stuff that happens, my being targeted and mobbed or organized, stalked, whatever you want to call it, a government stalking. So that's an example right there. That right there is a clear example. That's not a fucking coincidence. That didn't happen randomly. That was all orchestrated. The way they plant themselves out there to watch me, you see, and it's like, what the fuck are they watching me for? What do they want from me, and why? Does it have something to do with my dead father's fucking inheritance? I mean, what is it that they're so interested in me for? The government, because this has been going on for so long. I'm always, everywhere I live, every city, every house or apartment. I've always lived in apartments usually, but except here in San Antonio, and when I lived with my mother in Houston, or whatever, growing up I lived in houses, but mostly I've lived in little efficiency apartments and whatnot throughout most of my life in Houston and wherever other places I've lived. What is it that they want from me? Why me? I ask myself, is it my fucking serpent RHO negative blood, or what the fuck is it that these people are getting paid to monitor me every fucking day, everywhere I go, at the store, at the gym? They follow me around. Like literally like follow me around like it's really bizarre. And no, I am not saying that this, I swear to God, this happened to me. And I'm not, I'm not trying to promote, I'm just being myself. I'm not doing anything wrong. It's very strange. It's very odd. But so that's just an example, a more concrete example of what I go through like every single day, little weird things like that, especially when it comes to money or paying somebody to do something. It's like everybody wants to fucking get involved. You see how annoying and intrusive that is?